welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Lauren, and I will be hosting today's webinar, Machine Speed Defense for Lean Security Teams. I'm the Business Development Manager here at Picus Security, supporting the Asia Pacific region. So very happy to see you guys here today. Just a short blurb on Picus. We are a breach and attack simulation platform company and a leader in the breach and attack simulation space, recognized by industry analysts such as Gartner, G2, Frost & Sullivan. We provide organizations visibility on how your defenses are performing against real-world TTPs and automate the validation of your security controls. So joining me today, we have Isaac, of whom I have the pleasure of working with very closely. Isaac, please.
Thanks, Lauren. So thanks, everyone. So thanks for joining this session. And I've been working with customers in this APAC region for the last 3 years, and I've seen a very diverse range of customers, environment, and also how they have set up their environment, how it's being utilized. And today is going to be a chance for us to share more and also address some of these potential challenges that are facing them, right? Because the reality is we are dealing with advancement in the threat landscape, right? And it has become more challenging for the security team, the blue team out there that is, building out security portfolios, building out security environment for their own organizations, right? And as such, this is going to be a chance for us to share how things have changed, how it has evolved, how AI is definitely shaping it, and how Picus is able to help as they go through this journey.
Fantastic. So as we kick things off, let's start with some housekeeping to make this an interactive session. We ask you to type your question in the chat, and we will answer them whenever we can, or if not, at the end of the webinar. To make sure everyone can follow along with the frameworks we're discussing today, you can download our practical guide along with the QR code on the screen. As you're downloading the guide, I want to get started with this Mythos and Glasswing shift that has everyone on edge. Isaac, as our lead solution architect, what are you hearing from our customers? How is the new era of AI, supercharged vulnerability discovery, exploit development, and cyber attacks affecting our customers today?
Yep. It's a brand new way of looking at things, because these models, right, whether we are talking about Anthropic, we're talking about GPT, even with their new models, they are definitely very powerful in its own ways, right? It is not just about the capability in identifying these vulnerabilities, but they are also able to adapt and understand how to develop exploits and even writing patches. I guess that's the flip side of things, right? They are not just trying to tell you what the problems are, but at some point, these AIs are also being developed to counter a little bit on the flip side of helping the defense, right? So for a CISO or for anyone that's on the defense side of things, this is the definition of something that's unexpected. It's unmanaged, and it has moved from just what is happening in the server, what is bits and bytes, into the boardroom, right? We have to understand and accept that this is no longer just in theory, right? It is truly autonomous hacking that is, that we are seeing in the frontier, right? So let me share an example of what has happened, right, in the recent times. So a lot of our customers and organizations are still stuck in this concept of a manual or very human-driven world, right? And rightly so, because the reality is that that's how the world is operating. But the unfortunate reality is that the adversaries or the attackers themselves, they have leverage on what is out there, which is machine level kind of capability, right? So let's look at a campaign that's happened just in the last couple of months. it is going to be Fortinet related. So I'm sure a lot of you have heard of Fortinet. Not trying to, do anything negative in terms of shaming what Fortinet has done. I think they have done a great job. It's just that what we are seeing here is the reality of how adversaries have taken advantage of AI to do really some terrible things in the world right now. Right. So there are three important parts of this, right, when we look at the attack. So the first thing is the volume, right? Traditionally, it has been primarily when we see attack campaigns that are happening, we see maybe 2 to 3, maybe up to 4 or 5 campaigns at any one point in time, right? With LLMs and autonomous hacking, we see that they have managed to scale to thousands, right? At 2,500 concurrent campaigns, there is no group of humans that can easily manage it. But the reality is with machine learning, with LLMs and AI models, they are able to accomplish a lot more, right? The second part of it is also the velocity of things, the speed at which they are moving through, right? Again, when we talk about the traditional terms of how attackers progress within the environment, yes, we do see that the time that it takes for them can potentially shorten, right? But now we are really talking about not just days or weeks. We are looking at a matter of minutes or even just a few hours. So it's really scary how much things have reduced in terms of the speed at which they are doing things, right? The last part is the skills level of it, right? So this is also a very scary world. And the important part about it is that these tools have also largely removed the barrier of entry, right? AI models and LLMs have act as a multiplier effect, right? For good and for bad. And it's allowing even people with relatively, limited knowledge about the security space to be able to execute a lot of this complex multi-stage attacks that we are seeing, right? So to add on a little bit, you can also see that essentially these are sort of like the queue chain of activities that a lot of us are very familiar with, right? This is the set of how attackers actually do things. We're seeing more advanced queue chain activities that are happening. So it's not just looking at a very silo part of how potentially they are getting into the environment, right? But it's really looking at how attackers are able to, step through the entire queue chain of activities, all within a matter of hours, right? So I really want to expand a little bit more into this concept of it because taking an example of Claude AI model in terms of how they are doing it, right? They have managed to produce vulnerability reports about active intrusions and configured to run in an offensive tooling, scripts, metasploit, so on and so forth. And all of this with little to no human approval, right? So this really streamlines how they can step through this entire queue chain in a very limited time.
So when we look at the sheer scale of what Isaac has just shared, attacks moving from a few campaigns to thousands in just a minute, in a matter of minutes, what is the actual reality for defenders on the ground? Are lean security teams even equipped to discover and defend attacks in real time?
Yep. Lauren, that's a good question. And, the reality is that while we have shared a lot about what the attackers are doing and what they're leveraging on, we also want to look at what our defenders, what the security team is currently building out, right? So the traditional way of doing things has been that when we speak to most of these organizations, they are already facing some level of shortage, right? Even before AI has come about, there's already certain gaps, right? And we can see some of these examples right here, right? In terms of how long it takes for us to review alerts, how long it takes for us to correlate and take action, the average breach from compromise all the way to detection or to identifying that you have actually been breached can range from quite a few months to up to half a year. So you can see that there's already some level of challenges in the current landscape, right? And that doesn't help because at the end of the day, there are always processes as the organization scale, right? We are talking about how they fix things. When alerts happen, there's potentially meetings to discuss, hey, what's happening? Then there's going to be the concept of how to do reporting, sharing of information, prioritizing, hey, out of all these incidents, how do we take a look at what is important? How do we escalate? There's also a lot of concept behind having to deal with different team members, right? You have to talk to not just the network team, you have to talk to the infra team. Everybody has to work together to pursue an attacker, right? And that is someone that's at human speed, right? And you can imagine how much more challenging it can be when we talk about the machine level that attackers are going into. So it is really no fault of what our customers are facing, but it is really like bringing a knife to a gunfight. So this is where we believe that Picus can help break down some of these challenges and then automating a lot of these processes so that our customers can actually move as fast as how the attackers are moving as well. Shift to that concept of how they can embrace and also be more proactive in the defenses, right? So you can see that there are a lot of this consistent problems that our customers, when we talk to them, they have actually raised it up. But we'll summarize them into two very important categories, right? The first reality is that they can't fix every vulnerability that is out there, right? And the second challenge is that they cannot apply every hardening option, right? There will always be potential reasons why that cannot be happening, right? Whether it's a software application, whether is it because business requirements. So sometimes security takes a backseat, right? So what we want to do is focus on, rather than trying to tell you every single vulnerability, we want to focus on ultimately what are the attackers, the TTPs that are ultimately relevant to our customers, right? So that then gives our customers the ability to look at, hey, how the attackers are compromising the environments through real world threats, giving you that recommendations on how to fix them so that you can actually improve along the way. All right. So as we move on, so this is also where I want to share an example of how using the Picus platform, it can actually help our customers to look at deprioritizing or reprioritizing as well what is happening in your environment to fine-tune how you actually look at the gaps or look at the exposures that you have in your environment. All right. So you can see here that on the left-hand side, there is a critical vulnerability, right? So Log4j has been around for the longest time. I think we're taking this chance to just give everyone something that is very common, right? The standard CVSS score, if you look at when the first few vulnerabilities were actually released, it will tell you that it's at the top of the scale, right? It's a 10, it's an emergency, but the one thing that the score can never take into consideration, because it is meant to cover the Log4j as a software, is that it doesn't understand our customer's environment, right? So what we want to do, which is what we're introducing, having on the right-hand side, is the context, right? So the first context that we want to introduce is, are your defenses actually working? Are they blocking this kind of exploit? Are they preventing such attacks from happening in your environment? Because if that happens, then we can really look into whether is it still a 10 in your environment, right? The second thing is asset criticality, because ultimately, if this is happening only on a test server and it is on an isolated network, for example, then the prioritization and the importance of this test server will be very different compared to something that is revenue generating in your organization. So the whole idea is that by stress testing them, right, you ultimately have that ability to actually look at the fact that, hey, out of this out of these exposures, out of these vulnerabilities, from a 10, it's actually been reduced maybe to a 5 for your organization. And then as we look at it from a more holistic manner, right, we're not just looking at an exposure or individual vulnerability, but when we start looking at it from an entire organization, it now tells you how to actually prioritize your exposures. And then when it does matter, this is where we give you the chance to actually tell you what exactly you need to fix in a couple of steps so that you can actually look at all this from a prioritization level and then implement the fixes accordingly.
So thanks for sharing the Log4j example. I think a lot of companies and cybersecurity professionals out there can resonate with that. So for a lean security team, Isaac, this gives them the ability to stop treating every alert tense like a fire alarm and actually focus on those that matter, contextualized to your business criticality, which is different for every business across different industries. Since we are talking about optimizing prioritization, let's get into the deployment side of things. What does the architecture look like for a customer? How can they deploy?
Yep. So with the entire Picus platform scaling as our customers have different requirements, the reality is that the architecture has also grown a lot over the years. So let me just do a very quick run through of how that actually looks like. So on the left-hand side is where we have a lot more autonomous capabilities. We call it the Numi AI, but you can think of it as essentially an orchestrator that is helping our customers in various side of things, right? Whether is it development of attack techniques, mobilization to help you with your remediation efforts, or even just reporting, so that instead of spending hours on customizing reports, we have capabilities to help our customers to streamline these reporting information that is required. Right? So that is one side of it that is working mostly on the background, but it really shows up within our UI, right? And that's where on the right-hand side, we have that UI that's helping our customers with dashboard, with use cases, really to help address a lot of these capabilities and requirements that we have spoken about. Now, this is where we want to skip a little bit just to the bottom, where you see that there are 5 different boxes and they're all touching on different aspects of how we are helping customers. So whether is it to understand what the assets that they have, whether is it to understand the simulation outcome from their defenses, whether is it to understand how attackers can plot their path to various parts of your environment, or whether is it to better understand what the configurations and vulnerabilities that we have, that our customers have. All of this are all data and information that we understand from our customers through simulations, through integrations, and they are all put into the data fabric that we have that is helping us to better understand our customers' environment from different aspects of it. And this really helps us to be better at understanding the holistic exposures that our customers have and how they can manage it, right? So it looks like a lot of information, but not to worry, it is really just about how this data fabric comes together to help our customers to ultimately get that clear direction to say that, hey, you need to fix this to stop a specific attack or to stop a specific threat.
So thanks, Isaac. I really like that that you show how we can streamline things given the current landscape. I think it takes the guesswork out of assume breach mindset. And it's one thing to talk about data fabric, but it's another thing to see it in action. So since we have you today, let's see the platform UI. Show us how a lean security team can actually navigate through this.
Yep, sure. So in this case, what I'm going to do is switch over to the Picus platform, and I'm going to show you guys how that UI is going to look like.
So if anyone has any questions, feel free to just put it on the chat. When we have the chance to, we will answer through them.
All right. Now, to change things up a little, so I think it's time for us to also look a little bit into our platform, the UI capabilities, and to also walk through part of what I've highlighted and shared earlier on. So what you're seeing here is essentially our risk dashboard. So it's going to pull in sources from all these different capabilities that we have to give our customers that concept of what are the kind of information that I'm looking at, what is my prevention score looking at like, what is the MITRE coverage that we are seeing, how are we trending in terms of performance, so on and so forth. So this is just a subset of a larger piece of everything that is built within the Picus platform. So you can see here on the left-hand side, this is where we have various components of what I've just talked about in the architecture. So you can see that there is the discovery side of things that is helping our customers to collect the various sources of information to help us better understand what our customers have within their ecosystem. Because the first part of it is understanding what they have so that we can then help them with the validation aspect of things. And this is where the Picus platform really shines, because we are looking at years of experience in performing and validating different aspects of our customers' environment, right? We have security control validation, which is more focused on breach attack simulation. We also have attack path that has taken on not just the understanding what the potential path to various critical aspects of our customers' environment, but also to help them with automated pen testing approach so that they can also understand that within the platform or within their organization, what is actually vulnerable, and we validate those vulnerabilities so that they can understand that, hey, do I need to take priority, or do I need to focus on addressing such gaps in the environment? Then we also have other capabilities that understands more into detection capabilities of their SIEM, and even to cloud security that helps our customers to be relevant and to ensure that as they move into the cloud security cloud space, we have a way to help them ensure that validation continues to happen. All right. Now, once the validation aspect of it has been done, then there's also the concept of prioritization, right? And this is where actually we want to start from, because ultimately, when it comes to exposure validation, we want to be able to help customers prioritize what is actually important and what is relevant for them to focus their attention on. All right. And this is where within the platform, we have already curated information from various sources, right? So you can see that in this case, we've put in sources from CrowdStrike, but of course, it can also be harvesting information from various multiple sources. So it can be your vulnerability scanners, it can be your security tools like your EDR, your various types of tools that is helping our customers to understand what the various exposures that they have, right? And with that information, we can actually start sorting through whether we want to focus on what is actually of high prioritization. And that's usually the case for our customers. So with this, and then you can actually click into each of them And this is where the content of what we have highlighted there earlier on starts to make sense, right? Because this is where we want to look into the concept of Picus exposure score. And this exposure score actually comes in various manner. And there are 4 important key aspects of it. So there's exploitability and CVSS, which, as highlighted earlier on, in a lot of cases doesn't take into context of our customer's organization. And this is where business criticality is something that is configurable within our platform, right? So this gives our customers the chance to understand what is it that is of high priority, right? And what should they be focusing their attention on, right? Because as mentioned, a test server versus a revenue generating environment should not have the same criticality, right? And another important factor is going to be the security control effectiveness, right? And this is where it starts to get very interesting because this ties back a lot into the validation that we talked about earlier on, where Picus is able to help validate all these exposures to help our customers understand, should you really be prioritizing your time and effort into all of this, right? Of course, at the end of all of this, we will be able to give you more detailed breakdown. We'll tell you where are the assets, right? Which assets are actually impacted by this, right? Which are the individual assets itself? What are the remediations? And also the collaboration with the various team members, right? Whether is it through the Picus UI, or you can always go through the concept of a ticketing process to ensure everything is tracked, everything is followed up on, and then close off when everything is done, right? And this is where I want to take the everyone here through the next part of it very quickly, is through the security validation aspect of it, right? Because this gives our chance to our customers to actually start exposing themselves more into the various aspects of the Picus platform, right? And you can see here that it covers quite a wide variety of capabilities already, right? When you look at the network validation, endpoint, and when we talk about endpoint, we're not just talking about your typical operating systems, but also Kubernetes for our customers that are moving towards the journey of containerization for their environment. On top of that, again, when we come to various aspects of cloud environment, we are also there to help our customers be able in terms of validating all these new attacks and new threats that might be out there. The other aspect of it is the threat builder capability. So this is again something that we want to help customers to in terms of sharing, hey, what are kind of attacks that they are seeing out there? What are information that they want to see? And then this is where the platform can actually go to work using AI to actually curate and understand what kind of attacks actually make sense, and then curate them and develop them into the threat library. All right. Further to that, before I wrap up a very short demo into the platform, there's also the concept of AI security. So this is where, again, we want to help customers on their journey. So in the event that they are also moving towards validation of their AI because they want to have their own LLM models, or they are trying to leverage on certain components of what AI models that are already available, but for in-house usage, we also have validation capabilities to help them in terms of that journey as well.
Thank you, Isaac. I think we have a couple of questions from the floor. From CK Lee, how EXV can help with legacy systems out of patch and support?
Yep. That's actually a very good question, because when we look at legacy systems, as rightly pointed out, a lot of patching mechanisms may not be available anymore. But the fact that if you can still validate them within your environment, you can have a chance of understanding that, hey, there are two components to look at it. One is you understand the risk, especially when attacks are not being prevented, right? You understand this risk. Let's say, for example, it is a gap that cannot be patched anymore. Do you want to actually find ways to address them, or is the organization willing to accept that this is a risk that cannot be mitigated and then just be aware that it exists, or you want to do more about it? And when we talk about doing more, then this is where the security tools that our customers have can be very beneficial, because then we can start looking at, hey, while the software can't do anything about it, maybe from an operating system level, but from a security tools perspective, you can start identifying ways to see that this attack might be happening, or this gap or this exploit might be being used by attackers, right? So then this is where Picus can also be of help in terms of identifying, first of all, whether attacks can be prevented, and if not, where are areas that you can improve from a security tools perspective that can still help you mitigate such attacks as well.
Thank you, Isaac. I hope that answers your question, CK. And another one from Louis. How control efficacy is validated at a timely manner?
Yeah. So when we talk about control efficacies and validation itself, right? So controls are, at the end of the day, something that in most cases, customers already have them set up in their environment, right? So when we talk about making sure that it is done in a timely manner, we want to make sure that this is where scheduling can actually happen. So I'm glad you actually brought it up, because this is where we can look at performing this on a very set, regular intervals, right? Whether you want to look at it as a daily, or you can even do it instantly the moment you hear about something new that's happening, or you can also schedule them to sort of do them on a monthly basis as well. So this is where our platform can actually, out of the box, already help customers to look at things in a more automated fashion as well.
Thank you, Isaac, for walking us through the demos and answering questions from the floor, and thank you for asking them. So, we want to know how to validate security controls across the environment efficiently, how we can enhance detection capabilities, and how we help companies prioritize gaps according to their business context. It can feel like a massive improvement to get to automated workflows with the Picus platform. Isaac, please. So maybe we can show them how validation programs are evolving today.
Yep. So that's a very nice way to frame it, and that's what we are really looking at. Because a lot of times it is not just about a new tool, a new shiny toy that that can help solve the problem. We're talking about changes in ways that we can help to defend. Right? For years, we have relied a lot on what is now termed as sort of like legacy validation, right? The annual approach of pen testing, vulnerability scanning. It is unfortunately a slow manner, but also potentially outdated by the time people who can take action actually sees the report. So this is where we want to move towards a more autonomous way of doing things, right? Essentially, in a more real-time manner, we want to be able to look at things in terms of validation, right? We want to make sure that the machine is assisting us and driving all these simulations and validation through real-world context, right? But as we discussed with Mythos as well, even machine-assisted may not be fast enough. So this is where, with Picus, we are building this future, this roadmap with autonomous validation as well. So we'll take into how these various components are being set up. So you can see that there are a couple of ways that we are building this. So the first part of it is using research agents. So the research capabilities of it is really about pulling in information from various sources so that it can help us in terms of understanding the contents, clean up the information that's relevant, and then it takes on the next step, which is the red team agents. So then these guys' responsibilities, or this agent's responsibility, is really about understanding how we can actually develop all of this information into attack blueprints. All right. So once this is being mapped out, once this is being developed into threat content that we can run, then the simulation aspects of it takes over, right? It helps us to run the attacks, whether is it endpoint related, whether is this on-premise or cloud. It will then be able to simulate, gather the information, and showcase that, hey, this is actually done, this is capable, and then we can talk about the last part of it, which is coordination, right? Coordination can come in many forms. It can be really about pushing down to security controls to actually start identifying them, to trigger SOAR playbooks, whether is it ticketing systems, so on and so forth. But the idea is that it should be automated in the fastest possible time so that the right people can take the right action and streamline this entire process as much as possible. Right? Now, the next part to also show is how there's an example of what we have just mentioned, right? So in this pre-LLM world, pre-AI world, you have to tell the platform a lot of information, right? So you can see here that there are various stages of it, but again, with AI, with LLM, it's helping us a lot in, first of all, signal processing. So it helps us to collect the information. The CTI analyst then helps to extract a lot of this information. And this next part, when it comes to baselining, is very important because it helps us to understand what the current baseline of our customer's environment is, right? And then when something new comes along, which might threaten this baseline, the validation kicks in to do that whole approach of understanding, hey, does the environment have the capability to actually mitigate? And that's where the validation comes in. We understand what are the attack actions. We do that pen testing aspect of it, and then invoke various parts of it to do validation for us, and then ultimately be able to mobilize and implement all these various findings, right? Whether is it to do detection, whether is it to auto deploy certain mitigations, whether is it to create ticketing for the rest of the team members. All of this can be in a much more automated fashion. So this is also where we talk about how AI is actually transforming. We are really not taking away the human element of it, but what we are really doing here is leveraging on AI to actually help our customers a lot, right? Because when it comes to the attack capability of things, we need someone to actually be able to develop attacks that's much faster than what is possible right now, right? So once all of this content comes in, then our customers can very readily run these simulations with AI helping to act on your behalf where possible and where necessary, right? And then again, once all of the simulation results comes in, there is the concept of being able to interpret the findings, being able to drive the outcome that our customers are looking for. And that's where the exposure validation of it really shines and really helps our customers in those aspects.
Thanks, Isaac. I think we have a couple more questions from the ground. At which layer does the patch is being deployed? Is it at the network or the OS or the application layer? Maybe you can quickly answer that.
Yep. So for a lot of what Picus is sharing, ultimately they are generally looked at from a security tools level. But of course, it also depends on how our customers are managing all of this, right? Our general recommendations or our immediate recommendations will generally pivot more towards security validation because the detection capabilities will all be stored or be capable using your security tools, right? But of course, that is one aspect of it. Ultimately, this is to help our customers buy time so that they can look at how they can actually fix them for the longer term, right? From a operating system or from a software level patching perspective, that is still ultimate end goal. But what we are doing here is to help buy you time to address the gaps in your environment.
Thank you. And another one from Zhikai, probably an extension of that question as well. Does this apply to OT systems? Can this be run on premise?
Yep. So with OT systems, currently this is not something that we are actively pursuing when it comes to OT, primarily because there has still been a lot of considerations around whether it will bring down certain aspects, because when we talk about OT, a lot of them are very physical aspects in nature. We will have our own considerations of whether that will actually impact the customer's environment as well. So that's something that we will need to tread carefully about. But when it comes to on-premise, yes, it is definitely possible. We do have an on-prem architecture that helps a lot of our government entities, especially in APAC, to actually host them and run it on-premise with pretty much the same capabilities.
Thanks for answering that. And we have one more from Anonymous. Does Picus have operations in Australia? So maybe I'll take that. Yes, Picus have operations in Australia. We have a team in Australia. And in fact, at the end of this webinar, I will drop some details about the upcoming events that we're going to have in Australia. But just to quickly cover this, yes, we have distributors and partners, and also a sales team from Picus directly in Australia. So we have boots on the ground. Now, I just want to quickly wrap up the examples that Isaac has shared. So I'm looking at this through two lenses. First is about scaling expertise for larger teams. If you have a dedicated red team, this isn't about replacing them. It's about scaling the capabilities. So we are essentially letting the machines handle the repetitive stuff so they can focus more on the more critical things. And the second lens is for the leaner teams. We can help at instant expertise because we know that not all companies have the luxury of a dedicated red team or a CTI team. So this will help them with the added expertise. So we can look at what Picus can do for us.
Yep. So to add on to that, right, this spectrum also showcase how Picus is helping to bridge the gap in terms of what the daily operations look like on the left-hand side to something of a longer-term strategy, right? Because when we look on the left, we are looking at a lot of this so-called unplanned events. So this is what I would say in a lot of cases keeps the security teams up at night, right? Whether you need to do specific validation, when we see certain CVEs arising, is it something that needs to be prioritized, right? So when a lot of this are being addressed, then eventually the team members will then be able to look at something that's more proactive and a more strategy-driven kind of approach, where customers can be looking at, hey, my existing controls, while it has helped me thus far, are there new capabilities that I should be looking into that can also supplement or address even more use cases, even more capabilities and techniques that attackers are using, right? And also to prove that ultimately, with all these millions that are spent in the security tools, is it actually ready? Is it able to actually mitigate against these real world defenses, right? And even to talk about various other kind of board meeting conversations, it can also be used to stress test defenses, right? When we start looking at mergers and acquisitions, or when you start doing infrastructure refresh as well. That is a very key concern for a lot of customers, right? It can be not just an infra refresh, it can be moving from one managed service partner to another. You might want to make sure that, hey, the same capabilities minimally must apply. And how do you measure that? a lot of this can actually be automated and validated through the Picus platform as well.
Okay. Now, thanks for sharing that, explaining so clearly how teams can adopt Picus at different spectrums. So this slide really sums up everything we've discussed today. This is exactly why Picus is the market leader and why organizations come to us every day with two fundamental problems. They can't prove their defensive stack is actually working, and they don't know how to prioritize the endless mountains of vulnerabilities. So we solve that by providing you a single source of truth. We just don't give you more data. We give you proof of efficacy by showing you exactly where you're protected and where you're exposed. So we allow you to stop guessing and start defending at machine speed. Now, we've come to almost the end of the webinar. If you have any questions, this is the time to ask. It has been an incredible session with Isaac. We've covered a lot today. Are there any more questions? Okay, I think we have one coming in. Yeah.
Okay.
And very interesting.
Yep. So definitely if assets can be patched automatically, it really addresses a lot of the major concerns. But ultimately, we have also seen a lot of cases whereby not just about automating patches, but just getting it patched requires approval, requires change requests, requires scheduling to actually get that done. So that in itself can already hold back a lot of the implementations that needs to be done. But whereas from a security point of view, where we look at the different tools that are readily available, if they can actually help to identify or prevent these kind of techniques from happening in your environment, again, I think the idea is we can buy you more time to actually be able to fix these issues, whether is it automated or not, by shifting the problem further up the queue chain to look at it from a security controls perspective, where potentially there are already methods that can help you to prevent, block, or at least be able to detect that these attacks are happening, so that the security team still has a high chance of identifying that these threats are happening and take the appropriate action.
Okay, thank you. I hope that answers your question, Sayaka. So I think we've come to the top of the hour, almost to the top of the hour. Maybe we can take one last question before we wrap this up. Okay, I think no more questions. So thank you, Isaac. It's really a pleasure for having you here. It's been an incredible session, and I just want to quickly show you guys the QR code again. If you have not downloaded our practical guide, so it really helps you through the framework that we've discussed today. And if you want to book a demo with us through our website, you can go on to www.picussecurity.com to speak to our representatives. For the folks based in Australia, the ANZ team will be attending CISA Brisbane on the 23rd of June at W Brisbane, and ASA Sydney SEC July 3rd at Hilton Sydney. So come join us, and we hope to see you there. So once again, thank you everyone for tuning in today. We will close off the webinar here. And thank you, Isaac, for the wonderful session today.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.